Yep, you're act.
And we're on.
We're on. Okay, welcome to the Capital Outlay Committee's meeting. Today is the 16th
Of a 16.
of October.
Be careful not to put stuff on those.
On the 16th of October. And our first committee presentation will be library, but we all got the minutes? And Charlene,
Yes.
you did a fine job, thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Is that both of them or just one?
Just
Two-
Yes.
There's
second.
two-
25th and
Yes.
October
Motion
2nd.
to
There's
approve
two
both.
minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You got it. Hi, ladies.
Oh,
How
good
are you?
afternoon.
Any
I like the
comments?
new chairs, Jenny.
A little high, that's what I was just thinking, like, my feet are really
Any comments on the meeting notes? Okay, ladies, you're up first, and you have 10 minutes, which I'm sure is plenty of time.
I think so. The first project that we have is for the sidewalk repair and the streetscape. That's removing the trees that are, causing the problems with the brick sidewalk, and replacing them with the correct species, where the roots will grow down. Making some improvements to, the planting area of the trees, with the soil and how it was done, I guess. What we're basing this on is for a whole exterior preservation project. We had McGinley Calso did a report in 2015, and all of this work was taken out of the project just to save money. So it hasn't been on the capital plan separately, but it's been 3 years already since we received this report, so.
Okay, so it was in the original report.
In the original report,
And it was
a landscape architect, Brown, Richardson, and Rowe, is the one that looked at all of this kind of work. So it's removing and replacing the trees and repairing the brick sidewalk. So what I gave you in here is the excerpts of this report that deal with this work.
Okay, now how much was it? It was 82,000 in,
It was 71,000, and then I just followed the instructions on, adding
Escalating,
5% a
okay.
year.
Yeah, we had an escalator of 5% in the instructions.
okay, and you're going CPC.
No, this doesn't qualify for CPC. I don't believe this is not preserving.
It says it
My
here.
bad,
Historic.
yeah. I left that on there. The last funding source for the
Oh,
painting was CPC,
okay.
so I didn't update that.
When we initially went to them for the whole project, they didn't think that was eligible. It's not preserving any historic asset. In other words, the sidewalk was probably
Okay.
dirt back in the day, so
Okay, so we're not going CPC.
Sorry.
Is there any kind of hazard in the condition that it is right now?
sure, it's being cited in the town's accessibility survey that was done. There's some really good depressions in there, and it's, right now, people have not been walking on it since July, since the scaffolding and the fence went up around the library, but yeah, it's pretty bad.
Does
It's
it
a
have
lot
to
of
be-
uneven, this isn't the whole sidewalk, it's just portions of it that are affected.
Does the scaffolding have to come down to fix this?
Oh, it'll be down long before then, please.
I think it was always intended
Before
to
winter.
sequence the work, because you
Sure.
wouldn't put scaffolding on brand-new sidewalk. So
You
the idea
wouldn't,
was to
but
paint
you-
it first. and
Okay,
We do try to think sometimes ahead.
well, I'm asking because it says CPC, and it's
Yeah.
not CPC.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
So I'm just-
It's a leftover
I'm just-
from the painting.
I just want to make sure that,
So this work doesn't include, we did not include, there were plans in here for landscaping plans, for adding other bushes and different landscape planting beds. That's not in here. This is like the real, the need.
okay,
Beer bones.
Yeah, the bare bones.
okay. And the other one is
But just before we go off that, under administration, we do have our, what do they call themselves, HARC, the Harwich Accessibility Rights Committee, has done a study to look at, and we don't have a very good sidewalk network. So there is, under administration, a request to do ADA work. And one of the things, at least financially, I may consider doing is, we have a grant that's in for that work. So if we were to do sidewalk work on the other side of the road, it may make sense just to fund both of those simultaneously, if we get the grant money. So just, I may wind up financially try to fund both. So I just wanted at least the committee to be aware that will come up later in October when administration goes through its projects, but there is a project that would be a related project, not a directly related, but a related project.
One second. With all the discussion at the Board of Selectmen about the restoration of the historic Main Street, this would fall underneath also? Town planner?
It could.
Different hat, yes, absolutely.
It could
Yes.
funding come,
Well, in the plan, we have the Harwich Center Initiative would be start their work this year, and then anything that comes out of that, I would consider to be kind of like a phase 2 to any ADA work or sidewalk work that we do. But they would be related.
Okay.
Yes.
CPC has already decided it's not eligible?
Based on all the discussions over the years, yeah, because it's not preserving a historic asset. It's,
But there aren't some safety concerns with an uneven sidewalk?
sure, but that's not, then they can't,
And
you know,
it's
they have
not-
criteria they have to go by, and
And it's not handicap accessible? They
That-
don't have the ramps in?
that doesn't make it eligible for
It's
Not
CPC
eligible
funding.
under-
Does it make it?
No.
It has to be a historic
Joe?
structure.
Mike, just question, what are you doing owning the sidewalk? Why doesn't the town do this?
Well, I think similar to the exterior project, here's how I understand it anyway. You know, once the town centralized building maintenance, thank you very much, that falls under Sean Libby. He's been managing this exterior project. And I would think the same thing. This is kind of maybe the last of the way it was before, because this all comes out of this one report. So, I don't know, my understanding is the trustees would, if the trustees had issues or had concerns about the project, they might bring an issue forward. But once it's, and advocate for it, and once it's funded, then it's up to someone else to manage the work and get it done.
bottom line, it's going to be coming out of the town.
Oh, I understand, the town's gonna
Yeah.
pay for it
Right.
one way or the other. I just don't think it should be hammered on the library. I think that the
Well,
town
we-
should be doing it, not the library. You're not in the sidewalk business.
Right. The issue about the trees, as you can imagine, we have this $1 million project going on over here, and to restore the building, close to $1 million, and the trees are a problem because of the condition they're in and because they damage the building. So we don't want to get everything up to, you know, the state of total preservation and looking great and then keep the trees there. So the trees are, the trustees are very concerned that the trees come down all around that, you know, the front and the side. And that in doing so, it's going to disturb the sidewalk even more, as you can imagine. So if the tree, it's really important to get the trees down as quickly as they can, perhaps in the spring, if that's what it means. But also, right after that, you're gonna see even more disruption with the sidewalks. So one will follow the other very quickly, I would imagine. So,
And I think as soon as even without the I think it will damage the sidewalk, just naturally trying to get all the roots out. But I also think when the trees come down, that would stop further damage. But there's going to be, that totally changes the streetscape there, and I think there'd be a huge public outcry where the plans to replace the trees. So at least we already have professional input on what trees would be appropriate. So, you know, that's great.
Angela?
It strikes me that the reason there's a brick sidewalk there is that it's historic. If it's historic and you're replacing it and it's historic, shouldn't we go to the CPC? And the trees are part of what's destroying it, so I would think, we don't have brick sidewalks all around town.
Yeah.
You know, that's part of, that's why you have the pillars in front and all. I give it a try.
Says they're gonna replace it with brick.
I think it's too late for that. I think
Yeah,
it's,
actually, their deadline was yesterday to submit. I think because we thought it was part of the roadway structure, it wouldn't qualify. We did not check, we didn't test that. just sitting there thinking about it, like, I wonder in Nantucket and other places where they have cobblestones, I mean, is that something that would be eligible? It's a good question. I have a good answer.
So if you go with that thinking that CPC might have an option here, but would that mean then you go across the street and say that the sidewalk that's in front of Town Hall all the way down to Brooks Park, is that a CPC issue, or?
We never had it at a brick. I'm just saying, you have
Brick.
a historic building, you have columns on it, you have all sorts of stuff. This is by far not a historic building, I don't think.
Well, as they say, it's moot.
hysterical, maybe.
It's moot. Next,
Oh, the next project, or you want, okay, I didn't know if you want to discuss the interior. So we've had on the capital plan since fiscal year 15 for some interior modifications, and it's been on there for 100,000. I never increased it every year because it was a few years out, so that's not adjusted for dollars, I guess. But what we're asking for this year is we want to reduce the 100,000 to 40,000 for fiscal. It's on the plan for fiscal 21. We want to
Okay.
reduce it from 100,000 to 40,000 because we really need to have a study done. We've been putting it off, and that's kind of what's been holding us back. We really need some professional advice on what we can do, and so that is based on the cost of the Brooks Academy study that's being done now. And so we added 150,000 in fiscal '24 to do the recommendations. I mean, I included our statistics and a lot of information on the submission about, how much, circulation has doubled, all these other uses, but there's a lot that goes on, that library services have changed a lot in the 20 years since the renovation, and things that were not even really considered. Even technology, there was some allowance for that, but it's totally changed the way we operate and what the public expects and wants, and all of its floor space. And our administrative offices, we're not even I'm not even on the same floor with my admin assistant. So half the files are up there, half are downstairs. That's just not,
okay, well, we're going to take that up.
yep.
Okay. Let me suggest something. If the landscape, the streetscape, doesn't get approved, okay, I suggest that we will support you as a committee, like we did before, back to CPC. I don't know, the question is,
Yeah.
if this does not make the cut this year, it still has an alternate funding vehicle next year, which should be, I agree with Angelo, should be looked at.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can call around to, I'm just thinking Nantucket, places where they have the cobblestones or the unique elements, if CPC has been used for any of that. I just have no idea. Nothing comes to mind.
If the trees that are there now are gonna damage the new paint job, we need to get the town to take those trees down. I mean, that would be crazy with all the money we spent over there.
And waiting a couple of years to then fix
That's not gonna work.
fix what it does
Okay.
is not, that, I mean, we're gonna,
Pete?
I just want to add to what Chris was saying. And Beacon Hill, sidewalks are all brick, and whenever they repair them with brick.
Okay. Well, we certainly see the need, okay? And the timing sequence we can only get from you
Right.
to tell us when, if, and how it can be done, when it can be done, and so forth.
But just on the trees, are the trees damaging the paint job, or is it more the brickwork?
well, they're too close to the building, is what the study said, and also,
And that's 3 years
they were
ago.
overhanging, some of that is cutting it back, but it's just there's not enough space for the building to breathe.
Do we do
So
our
they
own
recommended.
tree? or
We
thing?
farm it out.
We farm it
Far
out?
too dangerous for us to do.
Okay,
If that, excuse me, if it's the branches that are hanging over the building, it's relatively inexpensive to get somebody to cut those down.
Oh, no, that.
Where you have problems just ripping the whole
Sure,
tree out.
that's an issue, but that's easily solved, like you said. It's the ones on Bank Street that are right up too close to the building, and they recommend taking them out because there's just not enough space between the trees and the building for the building to breathe. It's holding moisture in.
But maybe we can trim them in the short term, and then when the road
I think
work
they've
gets
been
done,
trimmed
then we can-
already.
Okay, they have.
Yeah.
Okay. The only thing that we can close is be prepared next year to have the explanation of the 150. In other words, the engineering, and then you have a cost 2 years later. So let's look at that much more intense. Right now, it's a placeholder, and we're good. Okay, ladies?
Yep.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right on time.
And you do good library work, too. Engineering, electrical, this is good stuff.
Air conditioning.
Forestry, generators. Okay, we got conservation. Hi.
Amy?
May I pass out a few things?
Sure.
First is just an update on the two projects that are one for this year and one for next year. And I'll split these the other way. I apologize, the capital request for a couple of years out for the reef. Chris put it in his budget, but I never submitted this form, so I'm happy to do so, even though I hope we never have to come to you for it. I'm going to give you a couple of the past status of it. Actually, here. Thank you.
Right there.
Go ahead, Amy.
Okay, so first would be the capital request for this coming fiscal year, 2020, for the east end of Red River Beach. This is kind of a multi-department, multi-committee project in terms of stabilization of that east end. Since I've been here in 7 years' time, we've used a variety of means to try to stabilize that east end, either with sand nourishment, sandbags. We have covered it. We've tried to plant it. It's where the Red River comes in, the backside, the jetty just doesn't extend far enough inland. And on the second page of the written document I gave you, there are some photos there. If we didn't nourish it with sand every year, then we would be at risk of losing that turnaround at the east end. And being that Red River is one of the most kind of the prides of Harwich and also a big moneymaker for the town, I thought the town would be interested and it has been supportive of maintaining that turnaround there. The Conservation Commission approved a rock revetment in 2012, 2013. The state denied it because it does not protect a pre-78 dwelling. That's their regulation. Hard structures like rocks have to protect a pre-78 dwelling. So the project didn't go any farther than that. Since that time, the state has approved one in town and another in the Cape region extension of these jetties, groyds, landward, just like we're doing here, with no pre-78 dwelling close to it. So I thought it was a good time to bring this back up for consideration. Soft solutions just aren't working. I myself, I'm not a huge fan of rock. I'm the conservation agent. But in this instance, it'll do what it's supposed to do. We are artificially silting in the mouth of the Red River, which there used to be a mooring field there, by adding sand as much as we have to keep the erosion at bay. So the estimate from several years ago, 2012, 2013, was 75 to 80,000 to do the work. This has been earmarked every year since then. I did bump up the request to 100,000. Our next steps are we're going back in front of conservation very soon for this, pending that approval and no worries from DEP. Hopefully, we would want to put it out for bid to see if we could get more accurate numbers for you prior.
Okay, well, let me ask you something. 'Cause
Yep,
you
sorry.
seem to have, you have the procedure or the process in place. Let me just get something straight.
Sure.
So you need the Conservation Commission to grant it.
Yes.
Okay. Then you need DPA,
DEP, Department of Environmental Protection with the state.
that one, the state?
That one.
To approve it?
Yes.
And once you get that approved,
Once we get that approved, I mean, we
Then you
have to
need the
go, then we need the money.
and you're saying the money's coming from CPC?
I have
This
put
is
the
one- this is a
request in.
CPC application.
Yep, for recreation
Okay.
and preservation enhancement of open space.
Okay, so you understand the process here. We would look at this in a supportive way, okay? And help you, support you, should we deem it fundable within CPC. Okay, so, because we don't have to vote on it.
Sure.
You know, it's not getting out of it, it's just that it's not the funds that we vote for.
Right.
But if the,
Well, I think under the charter says any capital project that's over 50,000 is the purview of this board.
to vote for, but
As to
then the
whether
funding.
funding
Right,
is-
exactly.
is separate.
And what I'm saying is that we would go to make sure the funding gets support.
Right.
That's what we would do. Yeah, that's my point.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, okay, so that's the 100.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yes.
Could I ask Amy
Sure.
a question? Amy, on your first page of your outline, you state, quote, in the second paragraph, this jetty, and I'm paraphrasing, is going to extend landward approximately 50 feet
Yes,
along the banking and put a proper return on it
correct.
as opposed to an abrupt 90-degree turn.
Yep.
So if I have that on the photograph, what does that
Sure.
mean
I
in
should have-
commentary?
I should have given you the survey plan. So right now, if on the back side, on the marsh side, it ends very, very abruptly.
Yep.
It curves back into the bank at a 90-degree angle. What happens when you don't have a gradual end to your revetment is you get exacerbated erosion on that back side. It creates a bowl right at the end of that revetment. And so that is where it would extend along the back side for about 50 or so feet and then gradually taper down towards the marsh so that we don't continue to see, so we don't push the problem farther down the road, essentially, on the back side of the marsh. Will we still probably see a little bit of erosion? Yes. But can we get it away from that turnaround? We can do that. And it'll be a less of an erosion rate too. So I'd be happy to provide the board, send an email and provide the board with a copy of the survey plan for more clarification if you wish.
So, on a nutshell, 5 or 10 years from now, how is this change going to affect the river flow?
Hopefully it will enhance the flow of the river. Over time, without us touching it, if you slow down or stop some of the intrusion of the sand there, and we stop having to put sand there 3-4 times a year, you will gradually open that mouth up, which will be better flushing from upland areas as well. Rivers do want to migrate, so it's going to want to go somewhere. By our indication, I mean, this would save that east end.
I think maybe a way to visualize it is when the jetty comes down and stops, that the river is creating erosion. And right now, the only thing we're able to do is put in a soft solution, which doesn't last for any length of time.
It's actually hurting us.
And what Amy is proposing is to do stone, basically a continuation of the jetty, to prevent the newly constructed parking lot from being eroded. So it will just really create a protection for that area where we have the parking. So it's really an extension of the jetty that would protect, and the stone isn't going to get washed away as easily as the soft solution. The reason why we haven't done it before is regulatory-wise at DEP, they haven't looked that favorably on it. The environment now, they have looked a little bit more favorably on some of these projects, so we're hoping that we can get a better outcome.
I think
What
we're
was their
doing far
major
more harm.
opposition to this?
They said because it wasn't a pre-78 structure, that we couldn't
That's
do
in their
a
rules.
solution.
You can't
make this
revet,
stuff
that's
up.
what they call it, revet a You can't revet unless there's a pre-78 dwelling, not even, it has to be a dwelling too. It couldn't even be like a municipal building. It would have to be a dwelling. And also there was discussion about whether or not that little hummock of sand that's at the end there is a dune or a bank. I'm contending it's an artificial coastal bank. I don't think it's a dune. They say it's a dune, so that's a battle we'll have to have too. But we'll save that for the permitting process.
Rich, I had a question for Amy. This is the town line between Chatham and Harwich, right?
Correct.
Is Chatham involved in this at all? Because it's going to affect them too.
They're not involved. I don't see how it would negatively impact them. The river wants to meander towards Harwich, so Chatham is gaining land, and we're losing right now, and probably would continue to do so. It's just the way that little barrier, they have a barrier beach like we do, but
I do think to
benefiting.
that point, just
We can
being
have the
involved in the Muddy
conversation.
Creek project, because the bridge landed on both sides,
yeah.
both sides paid.
Yeah, that's what I'm
In
thinking.
in this
No, we
case, the
could-
property line, it's actually the
In
middle
the
of the
middle,
river.
right.
So there's very little argument for us to make that there's any impact really to Chatham.
Right. We would let them know. They would be notified that this is going on, and
It's
certainly
the middle of
welcome.
the river, but I know the area, the river, it moves.
It does move, yeah.
Yes. I have two questions. The first one is, the $250,000 is, I know it's out a couple of years,
Oh.
is that for a new reef?
That's to expand on the existing one, and that's just earmarked. That might move a few more years down the road. It's right now our current reef that we have is only taking up about a quarter of the area that we're allowed to take up. So this addition to the reef is just
That's
that.
gonna be an addition
It's
to the reef.
in addition to it, in the same location, in the same 10-acre area that it currently is now. And we are in conversations with the tech, representatives from the tech, to probably acquire some of the material from the tech school when it gets demolished. And be looking at, again, grants. There's no desire to ever have to ask the taxpayers for money for this, but I had to put it in.
And just one brief, how come you never spent the $18,000 that a bunch of us raised?
I know. I don't, I'm not
A
gonna,
bunch of us raised some money
Yeah.
for the reef.
it's still there.
I know it hasn't gone anyplace.
No, it hasn't got any place. We are, we've been trying to work with the schools to come up with curriculum, but it's very rigid where their curriculum has to be. But we're thinking of some like science or, maritime days type of field excursion or work day at the tech for them to construct either reef balls or something like that. It's just a matter of getting together with the correct people.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just a simple question. I know that you're going to gather more sand on the west side of the jetty, because that's the way it works.
Yeah.
On the east side of the jetty, it's going to disappear. Is that a negative impact on the mouth of the river? I mean, will it do a harm to the river depth, and it doesn't matter?
If we put more rock in,
Yeah, what you're doing.
right. So something that the Conservation Commission, I would recommend that they do, if the commission approves this, is to do an annual nourishment of some amount. And that amount is determined by the annual erosion rate, which is calculated by the state for that area. But right now, we're probably doing 10 times the average erosion rate we're dumping in there to keep that at bay. So you kind of have to create a happy medium. You put the rocks in, but maybe once a year, we also add in 100 cubic yards of sand to mimic a natural process there as much as you can.
No, I understand that, doing that, and
Yeah.
I support it, but on the other, I'm asking a question about the river, I'm not familiar with it.
Yep.
And you're gonna make that shallower, right?
No, it actually would probably be deep. Well, right now it's shallow, but it used to be deeper. And putting the rocks in there and letting natural things flow, it will most likely make it deeper again.
Good, so you won't come back and ask us to dredge it?
I do wonder,
Making another
It's
harbor?
it's not navigable.
But there used to be a mooring field there,
I
yeah.
do wonder though, Amy, on that very topic, I spent a day once going through the erosion on Muddy Creek, that
Yep.
when you take something and open it up, what impact are you gonna have?
Right.
Fascinating stuff,
Yeah.
somewhat. But, you know, I wonder on this, would conservation ask for what the reconfiguration of the river would be?
I don't think so. I think this is so minor, it's not going to. And it's not going out into the water anymore. This is actually going to just be just above mean high water. Should have, I don't foresee any impact upstream or major impact to the river for this one.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Next. Amy, let us know when you're ready for CPC. Thank you. You got 7 minutes.
Thank you, John.
Your boss is the one that set the time.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I know.
The building closes. We don't have a key to get out. Look at mine. More? You asking for another new building or what?
Run out of time, so you won't have to pass it.
Oh, it's CPC? Don't worry about it. Okay.
I tried that game.
I know, that's why I said it. Okay, so where's the cemetery in Bud here? Oh, this is the wrong cemetery. I thought it was a tag team. Go ahead, John.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Thank you for having me. So I just handed out a couple things dealing with the 2 projects that I have for FY '20 this coming year. So I'll cover those, and then if you want to go through the rest of the plan, certainly can. The first one has to do with the Allen Harbor Jetty. I've had this on the plan since I've been here. As you know, we dredge Allen Harbor Channel every year because of the siltation, dealing with a degraded jetty system, I think. And so if you've ever come and gone out of Allen Harbor, you know, you see obviously from the water the rock jetty, but along inside you also have a timber jetty that is riprap really right now. It's in such poor condition. So what I'd like to do is I've handed you out a proposal from Bourne Engineering, or they're GEI now, GEI Engineering, engineering firm that we've worked with on many projects. They were the engineer for our marina project, and I have a lot of respect, and I think they're a quality firm. So they've given me a proposal for the study that would look at what we should do with the Allen Harbor Jetty. And so it's $57,000 is what we're looking for. We did have a study done back in 2000, year 2000, so almost 18 years ago, that I have, and if you're interested, I certainly can send it to you. It's pretty thick, and it has options of addressing the problems that we have with the jetty system. Again, that's 20 years ago, almost, and so I would only recommend this if we're willing to actually do something once we finish with the study. So obviously we didn't do anything with the jetty when we did a study back in 2000, and it's going to cost some money. I don't know what that dollar figure is. If you look at the next year, I put a $2 million estimate, and we'll know more once we come up with a design to try to address the siltation. There's options in here that cover, you know, raising the jetty, putting either a vinyl or a sheet metal bulkhead in, you know, landward of the jetty. There's a bunch of different options, but I think that really needs to be looked at from a professional engineer before we pour money at it. So that's what I'm asking to do this year, is to hire GEI to see what needs to be done, and then we'll look at it for the following year.
You make an interesting point, and I think it's difficult. You ask the question, does it have to be done? And I think somebody's going to have to tell us, does it have to be done? I mean, you can't take a 20-year-old study, because that said it should have been done, and nobody did it for 18 years. And I can't look at the Capital Outlay Committee, the Finance Committee, and say, should it be done? I don't know.
I'll just put some perspective. We can keep throwing money into the water every year dredging if we want, and that costs about $90,000 to $100,000 a year dredging Allen Harbor, depending on how severe the winter was. So if you're asking me, does it need to be done? Yes. Are we willing to do it is the question.
My problem is, if the plan comes back that they want to extend that jetty, I would be so against that, because it robs the sand to the east. And I've been in town long enough to know the last time they extended that jetty, it took all the sand away from Wawatesi Beach. And so if they extend it even further, it's going to continue to take the sand away to the east, and that would be a very bad thing to do.
And I agree with you. I can tell you there's 7 options back in 2000 that they suggested. None of them were to extend it. It was, to support it, behind it,
Yeah.
to raise it, to excavate, and
There's no private property to the,
a lot of it's private. So that's another issue, as I've talked to the town administrator about, that we're going to have a hurdle on, because my understanding, I wasn't here, but we've tried to do some things there in the past, and
I mean, if you could get in there and take that dune away, you could solve most of the problem.
some of it, short term, I think.
It would be my suggestion, I've probably gone up and down that channel 1,000
Many
times. It would be my suggestion at some point, and maybe it's too late now, that you take this committee out on your boat.
Be glad to.
On the Harbor
And I don't think it's too late. Be glad to.
Yeah, and that's to me, I think that's the best way to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, as to the need. When you're in the water and you see it, the need is obvious. At least it has been to me for all the years.
Yes, sir.
So,
Like
Agreed.
a aquatic bus ride?
yeah, that would be right. Yes.
We actually talked about that, going out to look at it, so we can certainly
Well, if
extend
you-
that to the committee.
If you're saying that the cost is $90,000 a year just to work on it, your break even is like 18 to 20 years, and that's your 18 to 20 years. If we had put the $2 million in back then, it would have been fixed, and we wouldn't have been paying. So if you look at the 90,000 for $2 million next year to fix, if that was the quote, pretty close to 18 to 20 years.
Can I just make a suggestion that when we do that boat ride, we take a look at Herring River jetty?
Sure.
Because the eastern side of it is almost destroyed. That may be too strong a word, but
Well, certainly, I mean, let's step back a minute. I mean, the issue we've addressed, a lot of John's projects and other projects, do we pay for a study? Okay, so you're talking about what the support here is. We don't know what the outcome is.
Right.
We just need an updated version of that, and in today's dollar, it's going to cost us $70,000. So that's what we're looking at. Chris?
John, how much did the 2000 study cost?
Well, whatever.
$12.
I don't know. I can tell you
I
what some
wasn't
of
born
their
then.
estimated costs to fix the jetty were back 20 years, or 18 years ago, what the options were. And,
That was done before you.
oh yeah, back in
He
2000.
was still in high school.
So,
I wish.
No, it was protected.
are you convinced that a new study would be truly new, or just a rebottling of an old study?
Yeah, I think to that point, we had a discussion about that, and the end product in the material they passed out is to have design plans and construction documents ready to go. So it's more than a feasibility study, it is a construction plan. So I think to John's point, it shouldn't be viewed as 57,000, it should be viewed as 2,057,000. Because why design it if you're not gonna,
Right.
if you're not gonna
Not
build
gonna do
it?
Yeah, okay.
And just so you know, task 5 in this is final design and construction documents. So this really is proposing more than just a study like this was.
I think
We're
what-
actually going to pay for it if we do this,
I
for
think
GEI to provide some
you've
design
been, you've been on the firing line at every town meeting for the past,
since I've been here.
right. And this is another one for you, but I think what we can help you with is clearly define, other than the fact that Harwich has gone through high school, now tech school, wastewater, and yet we're still dependent on our harbors and waterways. And everybody here, except me, is somehow attracted to the water. And I'm the only Portuguese guy who does not really care about fishing boats. So I would suggest that, one, we take the aquatic bus ride and we go to
Herring River too.
Herring River, Red River Beach, or whatever. And I suggest that while is the weather still decent to do that?
Sure.
Okay. So why don't we plan something on that? We understand this, and we understand that the 2 million, if it was 2 million, would be in '21. Okay? So we're good.
Okay.
Okay, so the other one,
So the other one is to try to make some repairs to the Wixon Dock landing. So
Wednesday, Thursday.
Wixon Dock, everybody knows where that is, on the Herring River.
That's okay.
Okay, that's fine. It's on the Herring River, essentially right at the mouth of the Herring River. Once you get inside the Herring River, in between the, just past the jetties, you hit a public landing called Wixon Dock. And we have a public float there with a fixed pier structure that goes out to this public float. There are no slips. It's just pick up, drop off for the public. But one of the issues we have there is, well, we have several issues, frankly. It's a tough site.
After images, so
It's a
just,
tough site. So what we're really trying to address here is right now, we have stormwater runoff just going, Harbor Way is the road that goes right down into the landing. And if you go look at it, again, maybe a boat ride, and we'll pull up to that public float, and we can walk the landing, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. But it just runs right into the Herring River right now. There is nothing, there is no filtration system, there's nothing there that prevents that. And so what you look at in the two handouts I gave you, one is existing condition, and the other is what we're proposing. So if you look at this one here that's got this little red path of kind of coming off Harbor Road, and it all that water, all that essentially goes right into the harbor, and it's forming kind of a rut. It's just undermining that parking lot, and it's just it's in really tough shape. And so what we are proposing is essentially what we did at Allen Harbor. If you've looked at Allen Harbor, the project that we did a couple of years ago, we created a bulkhead to address the exact same problem that was happening in Allen Harbor. It'd come off the parking lot and it would go right into the harbor. And so we put a bulkhead there, a bulkhead that was made essentially by putting jersey barriers that you see on the roads there. And we're going to put a series of jersey barriers there, and then we backfill with stone on the backside of it. And you can see exactly what we're talking about doing if you go to Allen Harbor and see that bulkhead. And then we're raising the landing up by almost a foot. And you can see a picture on that second handout. Section A shows you the concept of what we're looking at. And this is done by our town engineer, Bob Caffarelli. This is his design. That's who we plan to utilize for the engineering piece of it, and then we'll contract the work out. But that's just a jersey barrier, and then the parking lot will be will fill on the parking lot side up about 8 to 12 inches, and then on the back side of that we'll have stone, riprap kind of system. And that does a couple things for us. Before I get to that, also above that riprap, you'll see that filtration stone system. It's called a detention basin, and where that water comes down from the road, and then it goes into this kind of filtration system that is done very similar to how you do porous pavement. You have a series of levels of gravel that kind of takes that and drains it out. And what it also does is, and this is called a level spreader, I'm not an engineer, but essentially it now flows evenly down. If this gets full, it doesn't just all go in one direction and cause kind of a scarf. It just goes equally out through the parking lot. So that's part of the project. And then the other part that this does is, because we're raising the parking lot a little bit, if you've gone there at high tide, like when we have a real high tide, that boardwalk, half of that boardwalk, a third of that boardwalk is underwater. You got to walk through water to get to the boardwalk, unfortunately. And it wasn't right, and so this will help address that. So we'll have a ramp that goes from the top of that Jersey barrier bulkhead now that's up almost a foot, and that ramp will go to that timber walkway, and you'll go over that water, so you won't have to go through that anymore. So it does a couple of things for us. I think it's a low cost. I think it's a relatively pretty straightforward project. We've done it before at Allen Harbor. We've seen it. We know that it works, and so that's where we're at.
How much usage does this,
It gets a lot of usage. It does.
and it's free, right?
It is.
How big is the parking lot?
There is none.
You can barely turn around a car in there, to be honest. I mean, it's got, if you see, I think on one of the drawings, it shows where there's significant wetlands there that you have to, that really is unusable. What does it say?
Real small.
It's very small.
Yeah.
The green line, John?
Yeah, that grassy
Upper
area on that
salt
one
marsh.
side. And then you have that monument.
Salt
Just on the other side of that monument, that's a monument that was donated to recognize the fishing community. And just on the other side of that is a lot of salt marsh
When's the last time this has been worked on?
well, we fill it temporarily with like T-base kind of stuff. We'll ask, when it gets really bad, we'll call DPW and they'll come down and we'll pack some T-base. It's not paved.
The dock is newer, though, isn't
The
it?
dock, well, the dock was probably, Angela can answer this better than me, probably 2 years before I got here, so
A year or two.
a year or two before I got here, and I got here in 2012. So 2010 is probably that, 10, 11
Okay.
is when that
You
was.
said this is heavily used, but how is it used if there's almost no parking?
Well, neighborhood, people go down there and drop people off. You got a lot of people launching canoes, paddle boards, that
Kayaks.
type of thing, kayaks. So it's not heavily used like Saquatucket heavily. I mean, there's not a whole lot of, but you go down there, people are sitting on that float, fishing, sitting, sunning. It's a busy spot.
It sits right in front of a huge condo.
And it's adjacent to, the condo has
Yeah,
a beach
Belmont.
that's attached to it.
That's right.
So
So
there
it's
is an attraction to launching boats.
Which
from
is in
there.
Harwich, by the way, the condo.
It's a great spot because it's on the river.
Okay.
Just one last question. Why did you put the chain link fence up?
Well, I didn't put it up. That's part of the new owner, Mr. Zaretti, of the fish house.
Fish house. That's
Oh,
not,
they put it-
that's not our property.
It's not our property.
I know that.
Did you try to sneak in?
No. I go down there and look at this a lot of times. Just
Thank you, John.
Okay,
always
yes, sir.
intrigued me.
Thank you, John.
The Wixon Dock one, that's when they just did.
I didn't know if
We're doing
it was
this
in
year.
the Future ones, okay.
Yeah, that's true.
It's usually very contentious when anything's tried to do in that area.
We don't have to.
I know.
It's 2 years old.
Yeah, no, John, just so you know, that your placeholders, we will consider. So you don't have to worry about those right now.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Thank you. And look, I asked Chris a Wednesday, Thursday, or a Friday.
Is afternoon better for people, or?
It's warmer.
Well, that's true.
I think it'd be dependent on the,
We gotta really look at the sea state, otherwise, you won't, but.
So you let me
Give me
know-
some dates, and then I'll kinda look ahead with the
Okay.
forecast, and we'll schedule it.
Is a certain tide best to see it?
You know, our boat get everywhere pretty much.
Is there a certain tide though, best to see it? That's a good question.
Well, if you want to see most of the jetty and underneath, we'll go at low tide, so
tide,
you
yeah.
can see a good portion of it, yeah. But,
So we'll figure out the,
Get on the boat there and
Yeah.
run down.
and I'll show you our new harbor that's just finished, so.
That's a good thing. Next. We're gonna do this boat trip sooner rather than later.
yeah, we'll check the tides and I'll send out something next week or so.
Okay.
John and I are going out fishing tomorrow, so it doesn't make a difference. I can take pictures for you. See, when you're chairman, you get special ride. You can put a little baby seat.
We'll give you a big life jacket.
Yeah. Thanks, John, again. Yes.
Robin Kelly, Cemetery Administrator. I have 4.
Okay.
Start with number 1, I guess. So it's the Harwich Pet Memorial Gardens and Walking Park. It is 50.
I didn't type that in
One second.
It's pet burial ground completion.
One
but
second.
I do need to update the
Yes.
We're under,
cemetery, page 1
Yeah.
of your summary sheet.
57,000?
Correct.
Okay.
So we went, the walkway originally was like around $60,000, and then we started to do it, and then we stopped doing it, but when we just went back out to ask them for a price quote to finish it, now that they've stopped, they have now sent me a new price quote of $57,000. That being said, I'll probably go out and get a couple more other price quotes from other people because I think that's high. I did meet with Paul Sweetser, the town surveyor, just to go over one little section of the burial ground property to do our lot size and usage, because that's where the funds will be coming from. I don't have all the maps for you guys, so I'm just going to show it to you really quickly here. So the larger lots, which are 18 inches by 24 inches, would accommodate 2 pets or 1 horse, cremains only. They're $125. There are 300 of those. And then we have, there's 630 of those, which is a total of $78,750 for this small section. And for this section over here, which is the 12 by 18 inches, there's 300 of those, so that's $30,000. So this whole little section, which is just as you go into the pet burial ground in the upper right-hand corner, would be $108,750. So the money to pay for the finishing of the walkway would come out of the funds that we will be putting into the general fund.
And just in terms of town meeting, what to expect, we would have for the pet burial ground a revolving account that would go with that, as we have found out that people burials versus animal burials are 2 different things by law. So what we would do is to have the account be created as a revolving account, and then have the project be funded out of that. What we did when we did the school, the cultural center, to convert the middle school into the cultural center, the selectmen authorized accepting money in advance and putting that aside in the general fund and holding on to that. So we would do something similar, that we could theoretically now start to sell the lots, and then as the money collects and we people reserve the spots, collect that money and then have that as a funding source to actually do the work if town meeting approves it.
Yes.
Why are we in the pet cemetery business at all?
Well, there is a need for it. I have a list of people that have signed over 200 and something names, so I have a list of people who are waiting to buy lots in the pet burial ground. You can't bury your pets in the town cemeteries. It's against the law currently. In the state of New York, they have changed that so that in New York now, you have to allow pets to be buried in the cemetery lots of humans. In Massachusetts, it's still against the law. There is a bill pending It was up 2 years ago, and then it got squashed, and now there's another bill in again to try to change that. But at this point, you cannot bury pets in the town cemeteries.
I do think in fairness too, I mean, this came before town meeting
Right.
2 years ago, and town meeting approved, selectmen approved, town meeting approved for this lot to be converted from general municipal use to a pet burial ground. So we do have on the books that it's allocated for that purpose.
So the allocation is there. Now it's the feasibility, okay? So is there going to be some type of funding? I mean, I know you have some anticipation of potential buyers,
Yes,
but do you have $57,000 worth?
I believe so.
Okay. So if the job costs $57,000, where's it coming from?
We don't have a funding source, so the options that would be available to us would be to fund it out of free cash, general municipal use. More ideally, we would like to, at least I would like as the administrator, to set up this fund and then have that fund, have it come out of that. So basically, people that pay for a spot to bury their animal would then, that money would be put aside for, specifically for the purpose of construction of the finishing the construction.
Well, the construction is pretty much completed at this point. The only thing that is not done is actually the handicap accessible pathways. So it was supposed to be a handicap accessible park according to the article I wrote when I got the MMA award for it being the project that I got it for.
Okay.
Right now, the pathway is in now, and I actually could sell lots right off of that, and I don't need to do the pathway. But I want to do the pathway because I said I was going to make it a handicap accessible park. So, I mean, if I want to, and right now, it's just hard surface right now. So if you go down there and walk it, you can see it.
I do think, too, that the Board of Selectmen has kind of weighed in on this now, and I think that there probably will be a majority of the board that will be favorable to this. And certainly after the meeting the other night, and it was clear to me that there was four people on the board that were favorable to pursuing this, so I think it will be pursued. But we need to be respectful of the process that the selectmen do authorize the funding. So even though it's a request from the Cemetery Commission, it does have to go through the process and be formally adopted before we spend money.
Mr. Chairman, a couple questions. What is the origin of that list? And is the list made up of only Harwich residents?
So what I did was, all the Harwich residents are here, the ones that were non-Harwich residents, and the majority of them are Harwich voting residents, not just Harwich residents. The ones that are not, I redacted their entire thing. So there's about 185, I think, Harwich voting residents, and then the rest of the 200, there's over 200 of them, are either non-voting residents, like part-time residents, or they're from Dennis. A lot of Dennis people, a lot of additional Dennis people.
So do you anticipate kind of marketing this
So I've already,
neighboring towns?
so I went to all of the veterinarian places originally to talk to them and ask them if they would put our brochures in and give them out to people in their, so when they have to tell someone they have to put their pet down in order, so they could come to the burial ground. And I got a very favorable response from every single veterinarian office that I went to.
But let's get this clear. There's two issues here.
Right.
One is the burial, one is taking care of the pet once it's
So,
passed.
well,
So
this place is only taking cremated remains. We are only taking cremated remains.
Okay, so the assumption is that whatever the pet is that has been cremated,
Yes.
other than sitting on the mantle, it's going to be
Inter-
buried.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's all we're talking about.
that is correct. We're not burying pets
So-
that aren't cremated. They're only cremated remains.
So, other than talking to vets, you have to talk to the people, don't you talk to the people that cremate?
No. So the vets are doing all the cremation at this point. So if you're having your pet cremated at this point, you bring it, so you put your pet down at the animal hospital here in Yarmouth. They take your pet, and then the pet gets put down there and they transport it to Angel Memorial, which is in Middleborough.
For cremation.
Correct. And then it comes back to that vet.
They don't cremate it. No, you can pick it up or they send it to you.
Yeah, yeah.
I just went through it.
Yeah, yeah.
So the point is, it's not the fact of the vet, it's the fact of the owner and the fact of where it's being cremated. You got to catch them there.
I have people calling me every day saying, I've got a list of people waiting to buy these lots. So whether they're, I think once people know that you have a burial ground here on the Cape, that they can come and visit.
I don't doubt that. All
Yeah.
I'm inquiring is the fact that the vet doesn't have the responsibility.
Oh, no, they don't have a, okay.
Go ahead.
The $57,000,
Yeah,
is that just to finish the walkways?
yes,
Because everything else has been done,
right. Well, not the parking lot.
not the parking
The
lot.
parking lot's dirt right now.
Okay, so that's just for the walkways? Mm-hmm. Have you already sold some of these lots?
No, but after the meeting last Thursday, when we officially named it, I had 7 people approach me to want to purchase them. So I had to call Chris and ask him how I would accept the money.
We are having a little transition-related items where some members of the board or a member of the Board of Selectmen would like us to not pursue anything until we get a town meeting vote for the revolving account. And I think that there are other members of the board that may allow us to start to sell and segment the money aside, exactly what we did on the cultural center. So I think we will have that discussion with the board to see if they want us to pursue. But we wouldn't expend any of that money until such time as we get the town meeting vote.
Just a further question.
Sure.
This cemetery wouldn't just be for Harwich people, it would be for anybody?
So if you we had 2 different pricing schedules. So if you were a Harwich resident, it would be 100. If you were a non-resident, it'd be 150. So they would pay, just like in our cemeteries now, if you buy a full body burial lot in our regular cemetery, it's 800 if you're a resident and 900 if you're a non-resident. That's what we have now.
So if you from Dennis, it would cost you more money?
Correct.
Okay.
So, and you said you had 600 lots?
Oh, lots currently in that one little section, yes.
Oh, it's just one little section?
That's one little section. Originally, when we did the design, we had 12,000 lots, which would have been 1.2 million and 1.8 million. We have reduced the size of the lots at this point for the whole parcel and down, and it's going to be closer to $3 million if we sell out the whole
Is
place.
there an operating cost, in other words, to
So,
maintain?
so we haven't even entered into the additional costs. So say somebody buys a lot and it's $100. Their pet is still alive. We have a whole bunch of people who want to buy them and their pets are still alive. At the time of the interment, we would charge them an interment fee because we'd have to dig the hole, put the pet in and do a closing. I would assume that would be about $50. So that would be additional revenue on top of the revenue we're already
But
taking in.
maintaining the cemetery,
Right, so my
mowing,
regular, crew that does, we now have 100 acres of cemetery space we maintain now, my current crew. This only adds only 2 more acres for them. It would just be on the rotation schedule as well.
It strikes me that you have a lot of the information in terms of costs and income.
Yeah.
I think it might be helpful, particularly if you get the town meeting, to say we're dealing with 600 lots, it's going to cost this, and here's where we should end up after we have all our expenses. Because I think a lot of people think that it's a big losing proposition rather than something that at least break even, if not make some money for the town one way or the other. I know when you make it, you'll go build more and more, but that's beside the
I
point.
think from a business perspective, I think the issue for the town is there desire to bury a cremated pet? Number 1. Number 2 is, how many places on the Cape are there to do so? And that's where, if we have the land and the ability to do that, that's where it comes from. I still don't buy the vet, and I don't buy, it's the person that gets an we're not talking about crematorium, we're talking about just burials. So the question is, how do you hit the person that is ready to inter the ashes of their pet?
So when I went to the Pawpalooza, which was the pet.
That's a nice place to go to talk about
Yeah,
burial.
so I did. So I went there, and you would not believe how many people came up to me from all over that thought it was the most unbelievable, best idea they've ever heard of. So, and a lot of them were excited about the possibility that we were having this in the town. So I think that some people are underestimating the pet community and how much some of the people really would love this.
Well, I think no, it's not an underestimation. I think the fact is that we're all older, we're all, seniors, and we sort of know where we're going to end up.
Right.
And if we have pets, we sort of want to have them end up near us.
Right.
Okay? Because it just makes sense, okay? Either you're out in the water, throw them in the water, or else on a golf course, put the ashes out. But the issue is to have it local. That's the key critical piece. And I think that's a separate argument from the argument that we're going to go into later on
Yep.
about the crematorium, which I don't support.
The crematorium is out
It's-
out
that's off.
here, so
Yeah, so-
one discussion about burials and the other discussion.
Okay, so we got that.
Okay.
So now let's talk about
The Arboretum?
the
Isn't that it?
Arboretum.
Yeah, which is the cemetery mapping and software. Sorry, Shelley.
Okay, that's below, that's,
Is
I
that
did
the
put that,
Arboretum?
Arboretum project, cemetery, including mapping.
that's
and
under the
software.
50, so that's,
Yeah. So anyways, this project
skip it.
will
We-
will
we
be
can-
over 50 though, so I just want you to know about it eventually because I got in trouble before because I didn't bring stuff up that had stages, and this is just stage one of it. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be mapping all of the cemeteries, including Island Pond. It's going to be $30,000, a little over $30,000, and that's just stage one. After we do all the mapping of the cemeteries and the indexing of all the trees, we are going to import all of that stuff, and we're going to be getting an online mobile app. So if somebody wanted to visit anybody in the cemetery or wanted to visit any of the trees, they would be able to click on that and either go to
what's
the...
the total?
Eventually, it's probably going to be, I would say, closer to $70,000. It's not this year. This year, we're only spending 30, and it's coming out of my revolving account.
Okay,
But I just wanted you to know about it,
okay.
okay?
Because the Arboretum, the construction of the Arboretum items will be more than 50,000.
Correct.
So we wanna
Now,
make
now
sure
you
they're
have
aware of
historic
that.
CPC over here in the corner. Does that mean anything?
You know what, I keep,
Or is that just a
that's
mistake?
an old reference.
Okay.
I gotta cancel out.
Okay, so now we're talking, okay, then the next two are basically for next year. And that's an operations building?
All right, so I don't know if many of you are aware, I know Angela was because he used to be my liaison, but my office used to be at the DPW, and in 2017, in April, I was asked to leave the DPW because we now have Sean.
Located to a more appropriate location.
Sean took my office. This square footage in my office at the DPW was 244 square feet. My current office is, I believe, 88 square feet, maybe. And I only can fit my desk and a chair in there. So when I have people coming in who are grieving or trying to make end-of-life arrangements, I cannot meet with them in my office. I have to meet with them either in another place down the hall or somewhere else. That is where originally the building came up.
We thought that would be a temporary arrangement.
We thought it was
if
going to be
the
temporary, but I've been there.
crematorium got
Is there
built.
office space in here?
Not from my, yeah.
Right now, she's at the, down at the community center.
So what they
in the
did was
Council
they
on
just
Aging
took,
wing.
there was two offices and they took a wall and just put a wall up in between, so I'm in between two.
How about the middle school?
I know, I think it's a good move.
How about the middle school?
Yeah, she's got money, she can pay.
It's cheap, too.
No, I'm serious, I mean,
We'll look at different options. One of the things is, and not to be too, but the Council on Aging, we have people that, are planning their demise and having a person there that if they want to come in and plan for, life after, then they can do the burial lot. We have the Veterans Agent there, we have the Council on Aging there. So the idea was to create, unfortunately this is televised, one-stop shopping for people that may
I
have
understand. How about the basement?
aging issues.
How about the basement?
The basement needs a lot of work.
Pretty tough down there.
Okay.
But we'll.
So we'll look at that for next year.
Yep.
And then the crematory,
This is, yeah, so that's, so the building's one thing and the cremation equipment is another thing. They're two separate things. So if we have the building and we want to get the crematory equipment, you can make a crematorium in there. If not, can house lawnmowers.
okay. And this is one of those metal buildings?
Yes, steel.
I think we're good. Yeah, 345 plus 145.
I'll double check the numbers.
Yeah, would you please? Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
One last one. Half hour late. Sorry, guys.
And he sat through us meeting too.
This is the town planner.
You doing something?
Mike Hunting to you from the Housing Trust.
Yeah. So on the,
Planning.
planning, there's two requests that are in there. The first one is on the Affordable Housing Trust. As folks may remember, last year we had the Affordable Housing Trust was to be created and funded at $540,000.
500,000.
500,000, thank you. And the CPC did fund that out of their allocation of housing funds, primarily, I believe, some other funds as well. So we do have a follow-up to that, and the amount here, and we do anticipate doing a similar amount each year, is for the 340,000. So this is, in terms of that, they kind of get a kick out of the CPC people. They let projects go for 5 years. In less than 3 months, we already have the trust formed, just waiting on the Board of Selectmen to pick their additional people. There's 5 people on the trust, myself, Don Howell as the selectman, Larry Brophy came over from the planning board to serve. Judith Underwood has also been recently appointed, and there's one additional spot. So we will have our first organizational meeting once we get a full body. And then the idea is that we will entertain what different concepts we want to pursue. I do fully intend on trying to do some of these projects and put that 500,000 to use. The 500,000 that we have now does have a component where we would have 30,000 that would be used for a regional person to kind of help us undertake some of the work that needs to be done for housing. So we have been in communications with the town of Orleans, Chatham, Brewster, and Harwich to select somebody to do that. So we are trying to do that regionally. And then once we kind of get going, which hopefully will be pretty shortly, we'll entertain what kind of projects. In terms of potential projects that I would look at, would be taking town property that is under general municipal use of the selectmen, and then allocate that and basically contract for a developer to come in, develop the site, and then sell the housing as affordable housing as one concept. Another one would be to look at existing properties and see if we can partner up with somebody that wants to do, let's just say, workforce housing, and if we contribute a little extra out of the trust, and then have that be dedicated as affordable housing and not just workforce housing. So there's multiple different concepts that we could use to try to create additional affordable housing, but we do need to organize and move. The fact that we have 500,000 now, I mean, an average lot is 270,000, so I mean, it's going to be a process and a half to make a dent in this. But we are in the process of forming, and the idea here is to try to create a perpetual funding source so we can continue and move forward on the project.
Let me, 2 questions. One is the breakdown of the 340 is 300 for the trust and 40 for part-timer.
Yes.
Actually, it should be 310 for trust and 30 for person.
310 and...
And they are both CPC? That was-
Yes, this
even though
is
it's
a
operation-
CPC application.
Okay. My other question is, are there any properties, I'm looking at what Provincetown did on their timeshare units that they bought, I think, for $8 million.
I think there are options like that that may be available to us.
Pre-constructed. it's there kind of thing. So rather than, you're looking at, you said 275 a lot, is there
I'm
any?
just using that as an
No,
example.
I'm just throwing that out. All I'm saying, is there any kind of hotel, motel kind of,
Yeah, there are certain things. I mean, one thing as a town administrator, I do have people that sometimes come to me with different concepts that they like to explore.
yeah,
Unfortunately, some of that's executive session, so we've had some discussions with the board
Right.
on that. So some of those options do exist.
I mean, the Provincetown one is the perfect example
Just
of how
sitting
the,
there.
of how the community, how the financial world.
I do think Provincetown, though, they dedicate 80%, if I remember that right, 80% of their CPC funds for housing.
But I'm talking about the purchase, in essence, of that, of the property
Yep.
itself. Okay.
Can I ask just a question? There used to be, at least a couple of years ago, groups that built affordable housing. Where do they fit in?
They still are. So one option would be if we identified a parcel to market, and we could partner up with Habitat for Humanity or is it Hetch or Heck? Hash, one of those initials. And that they're in the business of building, actually Charlene's doing as well. They have a housing institute, and we actually met with someone last Wednesday, as a matter of fact, that's all he does, builds affordable housing. So there are contractors out there that specialize in
I
this.
was just concerned that we were going into competition with those
Yeah.
rather
Rather than working with them.
than work.
Yeah, no,
No,
we'll
it's
work
a
with them,
partnership.
Angelo, yeah.
Partnership's
We
terrific.
would be working as a partnership with those entities.
And I'm only one member of the board, so I mean, I have my opinions. But as one
And then
member
you've
of the board,
got
it will-
200,000.
And then the
local
200,000
comprehensive.
is for the local comprehensive plan, which I will let Charlene explain what that is.
The local comprehensive plan that was last approved by town meeting was approved in 2011. We are supposed to be updating our plan every 5 years. Previous
Can you,
to that-
can you explain what a local
A
comprehensive?
local comprehensive plan is like a master plan for the town. The term local comprehensive plan actually comes from the Cape Cod Commission as part of the regional policy plan. The local comprehensive plan at the local level is supposed to mirror the regional policy plan, which is actually being updated as we speak. And there is the hope that it will be updated and completed by January of 2019. One of the components that they're looking at is actually making it easier for towns to prepare their local comprehensive plans. Before, it was very cumbersome, and that's why a lot of towns held off, and frankly, I think that's why this town struggled for a number of years trying to even get an approved plan. But they are trying to make it easier for local communities to work through their local comprehensive plans. Right now, we have an approved open space and recreation plan, we have an approved affordable housing plan, we have an approved comprehensive wastewater management plan, and we have a couple other plans that we can incorporate in this new way that they're doing it. We can incorporate those right into our local comprehensive plan, whereas previously you could not do that.
Okay.
It would not have been acceptable. One of the reasons why we're proposing to still move forward this year is, and we're hoping to get grant money to do a lot of this, is that some of these other plans have a shelf life. So if we wait another 18 months in theory to fund this and move forward, we risk having our open space and recreation plan lapse, which means we have to do that again. So the idea is to grasp and utilize all these existing plans that are already approved by the state. And the comprehensive wastewater management plan has been approved by the, not only the state, but also the Cape Cod Commission, is to be able to utilize those as part of this plan. And those will live on a little bit longer than originally. Those do have a shelf life, but I believe once they become part of the local comprehensive plan, they'll be extended out a little bit.
Okay.
So what's the 200,000
That would
actually
be to
do?
hire a consultant if we need to offset those funds. I'm hoping that it won't cost anywhere near that, but in the old days of writing a work comprehensive plan or a master plan, you're looking at anywhere in a small community from 200,000 upwards of, you know, $750,000. We're hoping for the lower end. There will be grant monies available through the Cape Cod Commission as well as other entities out there at the state. So, you know, we will be going for as much grant money as we possibly can, but in some cases, it's a match.
Where does
So
the money come from for the Cape Cod Commission? Where do
some
they
of it
get their
come-
money?
Through
Assessments. to
through
the town.
assessments from the
So it's our
town.
money?
It's our money.
It is our money.
Yes.
The last time we updated this plan, we got a lot of assistance from the Cape Cod Commission,
Yes,
and I happened to be on that board at the time when we approved the plan.
yeah. And we are expecting that again.
Yeah.
But we need to have some money available. I mean, if we can get some components prepared, like if their transportation group can write the transportation part of our plan, that would be phenomenal. But there may be other areas that we actually need to go out and get a consultant or other grant money through a different entity, but there may be a match that we
Okay,
need
so
to
what's
do.
the process? You've got a number, what's the process?
The process will be once the regional policy plan is approved, and then the local guidelines are gonna be created. Once that is done, then we will actually work with the Cape Cod Commission to figure out what's our next step, how do we get there. I do believe that they will assist us with preparing RFPs to do what we'll need
I
to
got,
do.
let me
But
put
the
it,
commission, I think, is going to be done in January.
okay, and then we're looking at town meeting for 200 grand, that's my point.
Correct.
Yes.
We're good. Any questions? Thank you. A little late, but we're good?
I just had two things when, new business maybe, or
Sure.
quick.
New business.
Is there any old business? That's
Old
first.
business?
Old business? No? New business?
Just the selectmen's meeting on October 22nd, you guys are invited. So I think we did a posting for everybody, so that will be a discussion with Monomoy, and they want to have kind of, I think the selectmen, Julie Kavanaugh wants to kind of have a general discussion, and she's seeking input from each of the boards in terms of what you see, so you have a sense for what's, at least the requests are for capital. There is a spot on there for capital. I may do a summary of what we've received so far. I'm not going to make any commitments to funding, because I haven't gone that far, and I don't think you guys have gone that far. So October 22nd, we have that posted for you, so you can, if anyone wants to go, you're welcome to attend that.
Is that 6:30?
6:30, regular start time, yes, thank you. And then on the October 25th, which is next Thursday night, is the DHY Community Partnership. That is to learn more about wastewater. The three towns, Dennis, Harwich, and Yarmouth, it's anticipated that they would have representatives from the Board of Selectmen. Finance Committee is invited, and we will post or have posted for that already. And Capital Outlay and the Wastewater Committee is invited to kind of learn about the project overall. So I attend a lot of these meetings, and we're trying to make a simple overview so everybody can kind of learn at one point. The one thing, I forgot about this, they mentioned it Monday night, that we have invited to that meeting the folks from Mansfield, Foxborough, and Norton, who have a similar setup. They will be there to kind of talk about their experiences and how that's worked out, and some of their lessons that they learned, so hopefully we can make ours a little bit more refined.
Where's that?
That is
Where's
the
that gonna be?
25th at 6 o'clock over at the Dennis Council on Aging. I think it's right off of
It's on
134.
134.
And
I used to get
Saquatucket.
132. It's not too far off of exit 9.
It's not a huge room, though.
It's a community center.
It's a good size.
Oh, downstairs.
Although for that many groups, it will be, we did a meeting there before.
For you to sit in for that.
It probably sits 100.
Yeah, their basement's pretty big.
22nd, Monday?
Is it?
So the 22nd is Monday, and then the DHY meeting is Thursday.
No, when you do the presentation.
6:30 and
Committee.
6 o'clock.
And you guys have a meeting next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Also, new business, November the 5th. Chris will be doing it for me because I'll be traveling. It's the annual State of the Union,
To the Board of Selectmen.
yeah,
Oh, your annual report.
State of the Union. So, if you have any other input, I mean, we looked at last year's, Chris has it. We have updates of members, terms and so forth. And we have the numbers for an initial view, and Chris and I have gone over it, so if you want to support Chris, that's the
What date is that?
5th of November.
Monday the
November
5th. The Board of Selectmen gets to hear,
At 6:30.
yeah, you guys have taken all your training, you've been compliant. We meet monthly. We become active in October, November, December. We present in December. It's a liquid, fluid process. It changes up to the night of town meeting. So,
Not to, but it sometimes does.
anything else? Thank you. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
You got it.
Do you want me to hit? Yes, please.